Discipline will not save you. In fact, the version of discipline you have been chasing your entire life is probably the very thing destroying you from the inside. Everyone talks about discipline as if it were a magic pill, a simple solution that separates winners from losers. But what nobody tells you is that most people who claim to be disciplined are actually just afraid, broken, or running from something they refuse to face. Today, I am going to share with you 7 brutal truths about discipline that will shatter everything you thought you knew and rebuild it into something unbreakable. Welcome to Stoic Valor, where we strip away comfortable illusions and confront the truths that forge unshakable character and genuine inner power. The first brutal truth about discipline is one that will immediately make you uncomfortable. Discipline is not about willpower. This is perhaps the biggest lie you have ever been told. The entire modern self-improvement industry is built on the assumption that discipline means forcing yourself to do things you do not want to do through sheer mental strength. Wake up early even though you are exhausted. Go to the gym even though every cell in your body resists. Study even though your mind wanders constantly. Just push through. Just be tough. Just have more willpower. But here is what the Stoics understood over 2,000 years ago that modern gurus still have not grasped. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes with every decision you make. Every time you force yourself to do something through raw mental effort, you drain a reservoir that cannot be refilled indefinitely. This is why most people who rely on willpower eventually crash. They burn bright for a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then collapse into old patterns, often worse than before. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher, emperor who ruled Rome during one of its most turbulent periods, wrote extensively about discipline in his private journal known as the Meditations. But if you read carefully, you will notice something surprising. He never speaks of forcing himself through brute strength. Instead, he writes about aligning his nature with his actions. He speaks of remembering what is truly important. He focuses on perception and judgment, not on pushing harder. In one passage, he writes that we should do what nature demands and then let it go, not looking around to see whether anyone noticed. This is discipline without the drama of willpower, without the exhausting internal battle that most people associate with being disciplined. True discipline, according to Marcus Aurelius, flows from clarity of purpose, not from fighting yourself every single day. The second brutal truth is equally uncomfortable. Discipline without purpose is just suffering. You can wake up at 4 in the morning. You can take ice-cold showers. You can fast for days. You can run marathons. You can build impressive habits that look incredible from the outside. But if you do not know why you are doing these things, if there is no deeper meaning driving your actions, then you are not disciplined. You are just punishing yourself. The Stoics would call this misguided virtue. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, warned against confusing activity with progress. He wrote that being busy does not equal being purposeful, and that many people are merely running in circles, expending tremendous energy while going absolutely nowhere. This applies directly to discipline. The person who wakes early without purpose is not more virtuous than the person who sleeps in. They are simply tired. The person who exercises obsessively to escape their emotions is not disciplined. They are in denial. The person who builds rigid routines to feel in control is not strong. They are afraid of the chaos that awaits if they stop moving. Epic, the former slave who became one of the most influential philosophers in history, taught that before beginning any action, we should ask ourselves what we are ultimately trying to achieve. This question is the foundation of genuine discipline. Not how can I force myself to do this, but why does this matter? When the why is clear and connected to something that genuinely moves you, the how becomes almost effortless. Discipline stops being a battle and starts being a natural expression of who you are becoming. This is what separates those who sustain their efforts for years from those who burn out in months. It is not that some people have more willpower. It is that some people have found their purpose, and everything else flows from that center. The third brutal truth cuts even deeper. The hardest form of discipline is not doing more. It is doing less. We live in a culture that worships productivity, hustle, and constant output. The more you do, the better you are. The busier you are, the more important you must be. But the Stoics would look at modern society and see a civilization of exhausted people who have lost touch with what actually matters. Seneca observed that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, but he also noticed that we exhaust ourselves more often in triviality than in significance. The truly disciplined person is not the one who fills every moment with activity. The truly disciplined person is the one who has the courage to say no. No to opportunities that distract from priorities. No to obligations that drain without nourishing. No to the endless noise that drowns out the signal of what genuinely matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Consider how radical this statement is coming from an emperor, a man who could have had anything, done anything, accumulated anything, yet he recognized that the majority path leads to madness, to a life of perpetual doing without being, of endless accumulation without satisfaction, the discipline to do less, to focus ruthlessly on what matters, to disappoint people who want more of your time for their priorities. This is far harder than waking up early or going to the gym. It requires you to confront your fear of missing out. It requires you to accept that you cannot have everything. It requires you to make choices that feel like losses in the short term but reveal themselves as wisdom in the long term. The fourth brutal truth will challenge something you have probably never questioned. Discipline is not a solo sport. The myth of the lone wolf who succeeds through pure individual effort is exactly that, a myth. Every person you admire for their discipline exists within a web of relationships, environments, and systems that support or undermine their efforts. The Stoics understood this deeply. They did not retreat into isolation to practice their philosophy. They engaged with the world. They surrounded themselves with like-minded seekers. They wrote letters to each other, shared insights, held each other accountable. Seneca and Lucilius exchanged hundreds of letters exploring how to live well. Marcus Aurelius studied under multiple teachers and credits them explicitly in his writings. Epictetus ran a school where students learned together. This was not weakness or dependence. This was wisdom. They knew that human beings are social creatures whose behaviors are profoundly shaped by their environment. James Clear, in his modern classic Atomic Habits, makes this point with research to back it up. He argues that one of the most effective things you can do for your discipline is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you want to be disciplined about fitness, surround yourself with people for whom fitness is just what we do. If you want to be disciplined about learning, find a community of learners. Your environment will either carry you toward your goals or pull you away from them. There is no neutral ground. And yet, most people trying to build discipline ignore this entirely. They fight their environment through willpower instead of redesigning their environment to make discipline effortless. They keep junk food in the house and wonder why they cannot stick to their diet. They spend time with people who mock their ambitions and wonder why they feel They live in environments designed for distraction and wonder why they cannot focus. This is not a failure of discipline. This is a failure of strategy. The fifth brutal truth is perhaps the one you are least prepared to hear. Discipline requires you to become boring. Truly disciplined people are not exciting. They do the same things, day after day, with relentless consistency. They go to bed at the same time. They wake up at the same time. They eat similar meals. They follow similar routines. From the outside, their lives can look monotonous, even dull. But this is exactly the point. Excitement and novelty are enemies of discipline. Every time you seek stimulation, you strengthen the neural pathways that crave stimulation. Every time you chase the new and shiny, you weaken your capacity to persist with the old and necessary. The Stoics embraced a form of simplicity that modern culture would find almost unbearable. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, lived modestly. Seneca, despite his wealth, practiced periods of voluntary poverty. Epictetus owned almost nothing and was content. They understood that external stimulation is a trap that promises fulfillment and delivers dependence. Ryan Holiday, who has done more than perhaps anyone to bring Stoicism to modern audiences, writes about the power of boring routines. He describes how the most prolific writers, artists, and thinkers in history succeeded not through inspiration but through showing up every single day, regardless of how they felt. They made their work non-negotiable, as ordinary and unavoidable as brushing their teeth. This is not glamorous. It does not make for exciting social media content, but it is what actually works. The question you must ask yourself is whether you want to appear disciplined or actually be disciplined. The person who appears disciplined posts about their achievements, talks about their journey, seeks validation for their efforts. The person who is disciplined simply does the work, day after day, in obscurity if necessary, because the work itself is the reward. The sixth brutal truth connects discipline to something most people never consider. Discipline is intimately connected to grief. This might seem like a strange pairing, but stay with me. Every time you choose discipline, you are saying no to something else. You are closing a door. You are accepting that you cannot have everything. When you choose to wake early, you give up the comfort of sleep. When you choose to save money, you give up the pleasure of spending. When you choose to focus on one goal, you abandon all the other goals you could have pursued. These are small deaths. And like all deaths, they require grieving. Most people fail at discipline because they refuse to grieve. They want to have it all. They want to wake early and sleep late. They want to save and spend. They want to focus and explore. When forced to choose, they feel resentment, as if life is being unfair. But this resentment is simply unprocessed grief. It is the refusal to accept the fundamental constraint of human existence, that time is limited, that choices have costs, that every yes implies 1,000 no's. Now that we have explored the brutal truths, let us discuss how to actually apply them. Theory without practice is merely entertainment. The Stoics were not philosophers in the modern academic sense. They were practitioners who tested their ideas against the hard surface of daily life. Everything they wrote was designed to be used, not just understood. So how do you build real discipline? The kind that lasts. The kind that does not depend on motivation or willpower. The kind that transforms who you are at the deepest level. The first practical step is to connect every disciplined action to a purpose larger than yourself. This is not abstract advice. It is a concrete practice. Take a piece of paper, Write down every habit you are trying to build or maintain. Next to each one, write why it matters. Not the surface why, but the deepest why you can access. Keep asking why until you reach something that moves you emotionally. If you cannot find that emotional connection, the habit will not last. It does not matter how much willpower you have. Without purpose, you are building on sand. Marcus Aurelius began each day reminding himself of the people he would encounter and how he wanted to serve them. His discipline was not about self-improvement for its own sake. It was about becoming the kind of person who could fulfill his responsibilities with integrity. Find your equivalent. Find the people you serve. Find the contribution you are making. Let that be the fuel for your discipline. The second practical step is environmental design. You must become an architect of your surroundings. Audit every space where you spend significant time. Your bedroom, your workspace, your kitchen, your phone. Ask yourself, is this environment designed to support my goals or to undermine them? Then make changes. Remove temptations. Add cues that trigger desired behaviors. Make the right choice, the easy choice. Seneca wrote about choosing our companions carefully because we take on their qualities whether we want to or not. The same principle applies to spaces. Your environment is constantly influencing you, usually without your awareness. Take control of that influence. If you want to read more, put books everywhere and hide your phone. If you want to exercise, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to eat better, stock your kitchen with only foods that align with your goals. These changes seem small, but they compound dramatically over time. If this message is resonating with something true inside you, take a moment to subscribe to Stoic Valor. This is not just another channel. This is a community committed to transformation, where ancient wisdom meets the challenges of modern life. Subscribe and join us on this path. The third practical step involves embracing what I call structured boredom. Schedule time in your day for doing nothing. No phone, no entertainment, no stimulation. Just you and your thoughts. This practice, which the Stoics would have recognized as a form of meditation, builds your tolerance for discomfort. It breaks your addiction to constant stimulation. It teaches you that you can survive boredom, that you do not need to fill every moment with input. Start with 5 minutes, if that is all you can manage. Gradually increase the duration. Notice how your mind resists. Notice the urge to reach for your phone, to turn on music, to find some escape from the quiet. That resistance is exactly what you are training against. The person who can sit comfortably with boredom has a superpower in the modern world. They can focus when others cannot. They can persist when others quit. They can resist temptations that others find irresistible. The fourth practical step is to ritualize your transitions. One of the biggest challenges to discipline is the gap between activities. You finish one task, and before starting the next, you drift. You check your phone. You browse the internet. Minutes become hours. The day disappears. The Stoics understood the power of rituals to create structure and meaning. Create specific rituals for the transitions in your day. When you wake up, have a sequence of actions you perform without thinking. Make your bed, drink water, spend 2 minutes in silence. Review your intentions for the day. When you arrive at work, have a ritual that signals to your brain that focused effort is about to begin. When you finish work, have a ritual that creates closure and prevents work from bleeding into personal time. These rituals might seem like unnecessary formality, but they serve as psychological anchors that keep you tethered to your goals. The fifth practical step is perhaps the most counterintuitive. Practice deliberate failure. Most people avoid failure at all costs. They play it safe. They stay in their comfort zone. But the Stoics actively sought out challenges that might defeat them. They called this voluntary discomfort. Seneca would periodically live as if he had lost everything, eating simple food, wearing rough clothes, sleeping on a hard surface. This was not punishment. This was training. By experiencing failure and discomfort voluntarily, you rob them of their power to frighten you. You build confidence that you can handle difficulty. You discover that the things you fear are rarely as bad as you imagined. Apply this principle to discipline by deliberately attempting things that might fail. Set goals that stretch you beyond your current capacity. When you fail, examine the failure without judgment. Extract the lessons, and continue. This builds what psychologists call resilience and what the Stoics called strength of character. The seventh and final brutal truth is one that will either liberate you or devastate you, depending on your readiness to receive it. Discipline is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more fully yourself. Most people approach discipline as if they need to transform into a completely different person. They look at successful people and try to copy their routines, their habits, their morning rituals. But this approach is fundamentally flawed. You are not them. What works for them may not work for you. Their strengths are not your strengths. Their purposes are not your purposes. True discipline is not about forcing yourself into someone else's mold. It is about discovering your own nature and aligning your actions with that nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly about living according to nature. This did not mean following every impulse or desire. It meant understanding your role, your capacities, your responsibilities, and then fulfilling them with excellence. A lion that acts like a deer is not disciplined. It is confused. A river that tries to flow uphill is not achieving anything. It is wasting energy against its nature. You must know yourself before you can discipline yourself. What are your natural rhythms? When do you have the most energy? What activities feel like play to you but look like work to others? What values are non-negotiable? What kind of contribution are you uniquely suited to make? These questions are not preliminary to discipline. They are the foundation of discipline. Without answers to them, you will spend your life in borrowed routines that never quite fit. This brings us to a synthesis of everything we have discussed. Real discipline is the alignment of your daily actions with your deepest purposes, supported by an environment you have designed, sustained by rituals that create structure, strengthened by voluntary discomfort, and expressed through consistency that appears boring but produces extraordinary results over time. This is not the flashy discipline of motivational videos. This is not the aggressive discipline of extreme morning routines. This is the quiet, powerful discipline of the Stoics, who built some of the most impressive characters in human history, without any of the modern tools we take for granted. Epictetus, who spent his early life as a slave with no control over his external circumstances, became one of the most disciplined and influential thinkers in human history. How? Not through willpower, not through force, through clarity. He knew exactly what was within his control and what was not. He focused all his energy on his own mind, his own judgments, his own choices. He let go of everything else. This is the ultimate discipline, the discipline of attention. Where you place your attention determines who you become. Most people let their attention be hijacked by external forces, news, social media, other people's opinions, random events. The disciplined person takes back control. They decide what they will think about. They choose what they will focus on. They guard their attention as if it were the most precious resource they possess, because it is. As we conclude, I want to leave you with a question that has the power to transform your relationship with discipline forever. The question is this: are you disciplining yourself towards something or away from something? Many people who appear disciplined are actually running from fear. Fear of failure, fear of poverty, fear of being ordinary, fear of being seen as weak. This kind of discipline works in the short term but burns out in the long term because fear is an exhausting fuel. The alternative is discipline towards something, toward becoming the person you know you can be, toward contributing something meaningful to the world, toward fulfilling your potential, toward the kind of life that will make you proud when you look back at the end. This positive discipline is sustainable because it pulls you forward rather than pushing you from behind. If this video has challenged you, if it has made you uncomfortable, if it has shown you something about discipline that you never considered, then it has done its job. But insight without action changes nothing. The question now is, what will you do? Will you redesign your environment? Will you connect your habits to deeper purposes? Will you embrace the boredom that real discipline requires? Will you grieve the paths not taken so you can fully commit to the path you have chosen? Will you stop trying to become someone else and start becoming more fully yourself? Subscribe to Stoic Valor and let this be the beginning of a new relationship with discipline. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these truths. Leave a comment telling me which of these 7 truths hit you the hardest. And most importantly, go and practice. Not tomorrow, not next week, today, right now. Because the discipline that matters is not the discipline you plan. It is the discipline you live. The Stoics are waiting for you, not as distant historical figures, but as guides who walk beside you on this path. Their wisdom has survived for over 2,000 years because it works. Now it is your turn to test it against the reality of your own life. May you find the discipline that liberates rather than imprisons, that fulfills rather than exhausts, that transforms you into the person you were always meant to become.